Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of our program. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Dylan Ogline, who is with DylanOgline.com. Welcome to the program, Dylan.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so give me a little bit of a background of what you did before you started your consulting business, because I think that that's a really interesting starting point for most people when they get into consulting, because typically you have seen a problem, figured out the solution, proven it, and now you have, a use case that is something that you can move forward with and take it to your niche, your vertical, and really get the word out. So I'm curious to see if that is something that happened in your career before you started consulting.
Sure, yeah. Actually, I'll try to, you kind of need to know my whole story to kind of understand where I got, or how I got to where I'm at now. But I'll try to keep it short for you. So I started my first business, Mike, in high school, actually. I was ninth grade or so. I started selling cell phones online. This is back before, everybody had iPhones and things like that. And I started that, I was ninth grade, so I was like 15 or whatnot. And I sold on eBay as well, but mostly everything was online. And I started that and I was doing really good at it. This is back in, I was 15. I was probably, got to the point where I was probably making like upwards of $5,000 a month, which when you're 15, that's a good chunk of money. You don't have any expenses. And this is, 12 years ago. So, back then it was pretty good. And I ended up, through a series of events, I ended up actually dropping out of high school to focus on that business. I convinced my parents to let me, first I started doing one of those like accredited online national high schools or whatever. And it cost me like $4,000 or $5,000 to do that. But I ended up convincing them with that, and then I ended up actually dropping out of high school officially and focused fully on the business. I wanted to, try to take the business as far as I could. And about a month or so after I dropped out of high school, again, I was doing great, or so I thought at the time, I lost my merchant account, so I couldn't process credit cards anymore. And I lost it because they found out I was only 15.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I just quit high school, so I didn't really have anywhere to go. But I had also I'm an avid reader, and I had picked up, I really like the stock market. I was really interested in that and day trading and things like that. So I wasn't spending my money. I was smart with it, and I had a bunch of savings, and I ended up started day trading at 16. Give or take. Well,
just as a matter of curiosity, at that point when you had a proven model, why didn't you set up another merchant account and joint venture with your dad or family member or somebody that was old enough to have one?
Well, the problem is that I wasn't old enough to have it, and my parents were kind of like, "Oh, no, you got to get out of that business, Dylan, because now you're blacklisted." And it was true. They told me, you're added to a blacklist. So they were like, you're not going to be able to process credit cards anymore. And I did try going through like international routes and things like that, and it kind of just like fell apart after that. So,
but you got the bug. So now you're moving on to day trading and that world.
Oh yeah, I was absolutely obsessed with business when I was sick. I mean, when I was in high school though. This is what we're saying. When I was in high school, I got really good grades and everything, but I like completely quit like all the classes that I didn't need, and I would spend half the day in study hall just reading books on business. I was absolutely obsessed with it. So, anyways, business falls apart. But I was into day trading. So this time I set up an account through my father. So this way it was legit and I didn't have to worry about that. And I started getting into trading Forex and futures and was killing it. I mean, back then the market was amazing. It was a lot of fun. I was making a killing. At the time it was a killing, I was doing really well. I was making upwards of like $100,000 a year. By 19, I bought my first house. I mean, things were going great. But I noticed that the market was starting to make a shift. I traded volatility, and I noticed that the market was making a shift to the automated platforms or automated trading. You hear about it on like CNBC and whatnot. So I took all of my money that I had saved up and basically risked it all on a startup that was developing an automated trading platform for the Forex and futures markets. And basically it was going good. We were in the process of developing it, and my partners were doing some shady things, and it completely fell apart. Okay, and I was back to square one again. Okay, I was completely broke though, but this time I had a mortgage, I had a car payment. I was 19, or at this point I was probably 20, 21, something like that. And then began the struggle. So for 4 or 5 years, living off of credit cards, trying various business ideas from one thing to the other. I couldn't get back into trading because I didn't have the capital. And on top of that, the market had shifted. So volatility wasn't there. The way I had traded wasn't there anymore. So I got into kind of like information products, tried to like work on the marketing thing there. Tried that. I tried Kindle publishing. I tried a painting business, like painting houses and whatnot. I even worked construction for a little bit, just to try to make ends meet. And I'm trying to wrap this story up. So then about a year or so ago, a little bit more than that probably, I had a conversation. I met two of my friends who have their own businesses, kind of like freelance businesses. Met them and just started talking to them about how to grow their businesses. Is where the conversation led is business. And I offered to kind of like help them with marketing their business. My one friend had a web development business. My other friend had a bookkeeping business. And they knew how to do their businesses, but they didn't know how to get clients. And I was like, I know a lot about this internet marketing stuff that I've learned from like these info products and things I tried getting going. Why don't you guys let me try a few things? So I worked with them and kind of tried to apply the 80-20 method. So the 20% that was going to get them 80% of the results, the most basic core things. Okay. And worked with them on implementing those into their businesses, and it was hugely successful. So that leads me to kind of like where I'm at now with helping other businesses with that aspect, client acquisition, service-oriented businesses specifically. And that's where I'm at now.
So the moral of that story is similar to a lot of success stories, which is, tried, failed, failed, and then you see some success, and then now you're focusing in on where that success is based on those lessons that you learned. So you hear that story so many times. Don't insert the merchant account or the day trading and swap it out with something else, and then yours is the story of so many people, but you've got a super uniqueness to it because you started off so young. And secondly, you kind of fell into this success still so young. You think of a success, a high-end consultant being in their 40s or 50s, not someone in their 20s. And so I think that's super interesting. And I would venture to say that through those times you had the mental ups and downs of, this isn't going to work. I'm a loser. See, I knew that this wasn't going to work. I need to just go get my, job over at XYZ. So talk about the right mindset to kind of weather through those ups and downs, and the mindset to even prevent those things from happening.
In terms of that up and down, I think that is just, I don't think there's a way to prevent that really. I associate with a lot of business people, so a lot of my good friends are business owners, and that is just the way it is. That specific type of I don't want to call that a mindset. I mean, I think that's just part of the game. Part of the game is that up and down, and I think maybe what people need to hear is you only hear about the great successes in magazines and on TV and whatnot. Everybody hears about the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world who they hit a grand slam on their first at bat. Okay, and the truth is the vast majority of entrepreneurs and business owners are going to fail time and time and time again, and I'm going to fail 100 more times in my life. Okay, you have to just keep going at it and not give up. you're going to strike out many, many times. And it's really, you only have to get it right a few times, but people just have to keep going and not give up. But that not the mindset, but just the aspect of the ups and downs, the roller coaster is just, I think this is the way it is when you are a business owner. And I think people need to be prepared for that. There's no way to prevent it. You just need to be prepared for that and not give up hope and just keep going, keep hustling.
Yeah, and that I agree with you 1,000% about the ups and downs can never be prevented, but what can be prevented or buffered is your own perception of how devastating those things are, because you're never as good as your biggest success and you're never as bad as your biggest failure. So I think that once you get that mindset for success and that, never give up type attitude, then when that newest wave of, failure or,
doubt,
because it's kind of like the old saying, you win or you lose. Well, that's not really accurate. You win or you learn, and you learn from those failures. So I think that that's a really big piece in that mindset, because when that next time comes, you'll zip over it that much quicker because you know that you can overcome it. And I think that's really huge. So what are some mistakes that business owners and entrepreneurs make that you have seen and worked with that are pretty common, and you see them, and that's the first thing you zero in on when you begin working with someone?
The common mistakes. First, as I would say, this is probably brutally honest. I like to say that I try to be brutally honest with people, and it's that people don't have what it takes, period. They are simply not, they're also not honest with themselves, and people need to stop making excuses. They need to realize that it's not easy. And, it's the common excuses and things like that. And I'll give you an example is when people talk about how they're in startup mode. Okay. And that's bull. I mean, you need to focus on, you're not in startup mode unless you're developing a product or something like that. Okay. And another thing is people say how they're cash strapped. Okay. Well, resources can be limited. Okay. Most people just aren't willing to take risk and get serious. And I was there too. Okay. I'm not somebody who's just preaching. Okay. Like I was there too. I don't think I lacked the discipline, but I wasn't willing to take risk. And that is a huge part of it. You need to be willing to put all your chips on the table. That's what it takes to really go next level and to build a successful business. And I see that mistake all the time. You need to get serious. You need to get focused. Like you said, you need to be willing to put all your chips on the table. And most people just aren't willing to do that. They'll make one excuse after the other. And I think, again, brutally honest, the truth is that people don't really have business problems. They have life problems. And most businesses do have a product or service that they could sell, that they could do very well with, but they have so many limiting beliefs, so risk adverse and things like that cause them to fail. That's scarcity mindset. That is a huge, huge factor. And that's something I'd really like to, particularly like working with me, I'd really like to help people tackle that. I'm really passionate about helping people, through the problems specifically that I've had. I actually am working on a program to help people with that specific mindset aspect. I have a bunch of great actionable ideas and things like that. I just haven't systemized it in a way like I have with the marketing aspect, but kind of bring it full circle is people have that scarcity mindset. They need to get out of that. They need to be willing to take risk and also be completely focused on their business. They need to breathe it, eat it, sleep it, live it. Everything needs to be focused.
Yeah, like burn the boats. Have you heard that story?
Burn the bridge? Yeah, burn the bridge.
No, burn the boats.
What's the boat? I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, Google it. It's a really interesting story. It's like a historical story of this one conqueror that they were in the ships going to go conquer this new land, and they get out in the rowboat.
They burnt the boat so they couldn't go back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So that mentality. But here's something that I want to clarify or get your thoughts on, because I think it can be a risk to think too much about taking risks. And how do you recommend and advise balancing? You don't want to have a scarcity mindset. You need to take risks. But then how do you balance that ethically with giving advice to an entrepreneur or a small business owner, and to the point where here's this needle going, like, I'm 20 grand in credit card debt because I'm taking some risk. I'm trying to make these investments in my business, and now I'm 40 grand in debt and it hasn't paid off yet. At what point is taking risks too risky? Because I agree, you have to kind of take some risk and make some investments in your business, because then that's when you yourself believe I'm all in. But at what point is it too much?
What point is it too much? That's an interesting question. I would say it's first off, I guess my advice first and foremost would be to take smart risks.
Mm-hmm.
I see so many people that they're focusing on the wrong thing. And I guess what you need to do is focus on, you need to focus on making the cash register ring, I like to say. Okay, bringing in clients, client acquisition. Okay, I personally spent, I had $100,000 in credit card debt at one point. I personally spent years bouncing around from one idea to the other. Okay. Instead of focusing on sales, on client acquisition, making the cash register ring. Okay, so I would make sure the idea was perfect, or whatever I was working on was perfect, before ever finding out someone would be willing to pay for it or buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then when things wouldn't sell, I would rebuild the product or scratch it and move on to the next. And people will spend months trying to figure out their pricing and their service and their offers before ever trying to sell it. Okay. So as an example, okay, my client attraction blueprint, okay, that program, I sold $10,000 of that course. Well, this is when I got it right. Okay, I sold $10,000 worth of that course before I ever built it. Okay, I knew what I was selling. I knew I could provide the advice. And to add a ethical disclaimer, you could say you don't want to do something or sell a product or service that you're not sure that you can deliver. Okay, you want to make sure
that's
that
a common approach. You had it in your head, you had it proven, but you just didn't have it on paper to deliver a worksheet to the group. So you sold the concept of it, and then you stayed 1 week ahead of the group and delivered it, and then the results spoke for themselves, I'm sure.
Bingo. And that was the exact opposite of everything I had done before.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's really where the problem is that people aren't focusing. Businesses only die because they stop bringing in cash. If you're generating sales and you're profitable, your business is going to succeed. So that's what you need to focus on. And of course, ethically, like I just said, you want to make sure that what you're doing you're good at, but you need to focus on making the cash register ring, and that mitigates that risk, I believe.
Well, let's wrap this up with answering this question and then directing people to how do they learn more about connecting with you and your program. But here's the question. I would suspect this is a true statement, which is another element and aspect of taking your business to the next level is, the smart calculated risk check, and also getting yourself properly motivated in this sense. You just described something that lit the fire under your feet, which is you sold $10,000 of a course that wasn't tangible yet, and you had to put it together because now you had a deadline. So that goes back to deadlines and accountability. So I would suspect that a lot of your clients are, hey, Dylan's fee is X, and I'm going to hold your feet to the fire, and they go, okay, and now they're all in, because if your program was $29, they're going, oh, I've spent that last week in, soda pop at the, gas station. And then when you're holding them accountable and it was an investment on their part, now the results are going to take shape because they're focused on it because they want to make sure they get their own ROI.
Oh, absolutely. I see the people who, somebody who buys a $20 ebook or something like that, they're not going to take action. They're not going to take any of the steps. They're not going to follow your program or anything like that. And it's silly, but yeah, and it holds when you charge higher ticket prices to your clients. Any of the people I work with, I typically recommend that they charge premium prices and things like that. When you start to do that, you hold yourself accountable as well. You have to provide an exceptional service, and you're also working with much more dedicated clients, people that are more serious and aren't just joking around.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. So what's the best way that people can connect with you, learn more, and learn more about your program?
Well, I have, you can go to my website, DylanOgline.com. I think I'm starting to get into the social media stuff. I got Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that. They can come to my website, but right now, actually, I'm actually not accepting any new clients into that particular program. I got to the point where I was taking on too many, and I wasn't able to provide the attention I wanted to. It's a lot of systems and things like that I've kind of, processes that I help people put in place, but there's still like the consulting aspect, a lot of one-on-one coaching you could call. So I like to focus on helping my clients one-on-one. So right now I actually can't even sign up to work with me, but they can come to my website, sign up to get on my email list, and whenever I have more slots available, I reach out to people and see if they're interested in joining. Excellent.
So we'll make sure we post the URL to your website, DylanOgline.com, in the show notes. And super excited to learn more about you and your background and approach and just the mindset. So thank you so much for your time on the interview today, Dylan. It was wonderful getting to know you.
Absolutely, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.